Okay, are we... Oh gosh, are we going? Hi, howdy. It's like the third time I've had to film this intro, because every single time I try, my cats, either claw something, or they knock something over, or they knock my drink over, which they did with my freaking Red Bull, and I had to grab another one, so rip my Red Bull and my carpet. I think I finally got them under control though, so, hi. Any background noise that you hear is probably the cats too, just FYI. But, yeah, so I got another video for you guys today. I do. It's kind of a follow-up on the last video that I did, because the last one that I did was kind of me talking about how sometimes I find myself almost missing some of the parts of being a guy back when I was a guy, even though I'm still detransitioned. And I had seen a couple of comments down below asking kind of, I guess, for me to elaborate on that a little bit more, on like what I specifically kind of missed and kind of, you know, why and what kind of part that had played in my detransition, if any. So I think I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna answer that for you guys. But also, before I start, I can't help myself, I got a new wig. I like it. I'm kind of nerding out right now over it. It's like, I had seen somebody with a pastel pink hair, and I was like, that looks really killer, I kind of want it. But I had also seen some people with like the purple, and I wasn't sure which one I wanted, so I was like, well, maybe let's go with both. I don't know, but I'm really liking the pink, but I like the purple too, so I'm like, I don't know, I'm in between, but I really like it. So, and I got my cute little bun up top, but yeah, so there's that. Maybe one day I'll end up doing like a wig collection review, because after all this time of me going through and buying so many wigs, I will eventually have a collection. I think I have, out of decent wigs, I probably have at least 6 or 7 good ones now. And once I hit 10, I'll probably do a collection video for you guys. But yeah, so there's that. I don't know, my freaking unicorn hair. Some of it is like in between, and it's like, my brain can't function. I like it. I like it. What can I say? But yeah, there's me nerding out over my hair, over with. So yeah, for this video, I think I'm just gonna go in depth, more into detail about some of the things on the opposite side of the spectrum, about what I missed about being a girl back when I was a trans guy, and more specifically and more detailed explanations about why those things caused me to detransition in the first place. So yeah, the last video that I had posted, I had talked about the things about a guy that I had missed, even now that I've detransitioned, and I do find myself missing some of those, but it's not quite the same thing for me, at least, as when I was a trans guy missing certain things about being a girl. Like, it's just different. It's not quite the same thing, and I wouldn't even call, well, although I don't know, because for a while I called me as a guy, or missing certain things about a guy, my brain can't function right now, I'm sorry, but before I used to call that dysphoria, but now I'm not so sure that it was. I know I didn't have dysphoria back when I transitioned, because I'm not trans, which I will explain, but now I'm not feeling dysphoria, right, about being, or like reverse dysphoria. It's more along the lines of like, now that I've experienced that side of it, and I've been on that side of things, now that I'm on the opposite, I just find myself missing some of the perks, almost, basically. It's kind of just missing some of the positives that were, you know, kind of included, oh gosh, Red Bull hiccups, in that, kind of that part of my life. But, when I was trans, because I transitioned, here, let me see, I transitioned, I think, in October of 2018. I just went through all the dates, and I think I figured everything out. And I didn't detransition until February I'm pretty sure, of 2019. So I was trans for about a little over a year and a half, if I'm doing that kind of math correctly in my head. So I didn't really have any of those thoughts of like missing any part of being a girl, and really until probably the last 6 months. Like, I went a good year of being on testosterone, of being called by like a different name, and all of my coworkers knew me as a guy. Like, nobody was familiar at the time. Nobody knew my old self, right? So I didn't get misgendered ever. So everything was pretty, like, I went a solid a year with everything going really, really smoothly. And it was only until after then where it had kind of just started... Oh gosh, it's so hard to explain because I didn't even really understand it much when I had begun to think it, you know? It's like I didn't, for a while, and it's why I didn't detransition right away, because for a while I really didn't understand what I was feeling, and it really just kind of left me confused, and so for a while I just completely ignored it. So I will do my best to explain to you what I was feeling and what was kind of going through my head, but I'm sorry if it comes out really kind of confusing and rambly, because it was a while ago and I didn't really focus that much on it when I was trans, for a specific reason. So apologies if it comes off a little bit confusing, but yeah, so the first kind of thought that I had when I was a trans guy, of missing parts of being a girl. At first it came across as like simple things, right? I was very happy with who I was at the time with being a guy, but I would find myself missing just little simple things about being a girl. Like, mature. Like, for example, I would be maybe working a night shift in Walgreens one day, and, you know, you'd go through, like, the hair care aisle, past all the hair dyes, and back when I was a girl, I used to really do my hair a lot. I used to dye it fancy colors, so the wigs and shit is not a new thing. I've always been doing that, and just being able to get so creative with all that stuff, I always kind of did as a girl, and I really, really liked it. You know, so, but when I was a trans guy, I'm not at all saying that guys can't wear wigs, guys can't dye their hair fancy colors, guys can't do any of that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. You know, you do you, if you like it, you go for it. But when I was a trans guy, I felt like since I was trans, I felt like I had to overcompensate so hard about masculinity and being like a manly man, you know, that I couldn't allow myself to go anywhere near anything remotely girly, right? So all of my clothes were very masculine, nothing was very form-fitting. I certainly didn't dye my hair fancy colors. I kept it in like buzzed on the sides. I had a fade and it was very short. I always kept it very short. Yeah, I was everything that's stereotypically manly when I was trans, that's all I was about, right? But after about a year, I had kind of felt myself starting to miss some of the stuff that I used to do, some of the stuff that I used to be able to do, and it was a very odd feeling. But another one that I had kind of started to notice was that I had kind of started to miss, let's see, not necessarily doing makeup and girly shit like that, but I guess the only way I could explain it is like when you're a girl, at least in my experience, this is kind of part of the reason why a lot of women say that they don't do makeup and they don't do their hair and they don't do themselves up for other people. Because, at least for me, when I do makeup a little bit and you do your hair all fancy, it makes it feel good. It makes you feel like you look good, right? It gives you that confidence boost. And as a guy, I was happy again. I was satisfied with myself. I didn't necessarily think I looked bad, but I didn't think I looked that great either, and so that's kind of where my self-confidence issue as a trans guy came in, and that's kind of where I started to miss feeling like I looked good, you know? That's, because when I was a girl, I felt like I could do my makeup and I could make myself look nice, and it just feeling like I look good, you know? I didn't have that when I was a guy, and I kind of started to miss, I guess the simplest way that I could put it, since when I was a trans guy, I couldn't do my hair up all fancy, I couldn't do my makeup. It's like I woke up, got out of bed, got dressed, and I went to work. Like, that was the most I did. Like, if I wanted to make myself feel like I looked good, I would wear like a nice shirt, right? Or like a button down, you know, and then I'd feel like you look good. But it's that kind of that aspect, I guess, of confidence that I really kind of started, the confidence that I had when I was a girl. That's what I missed. Feeling like I looked good when I was a girl. That's what I missed. The feeling of it. And whenever I had started to feel or kind of get those thoughts spiraling in my head, and this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's more to it than this, I promise. But whenever I would kind of start to get those feelings, I know how my brain works. And if I focus on anything for too long, then I know I'll start to actually think about it, and think about it almost too much. And I didn't want to think about what I missed about being a girl, because as when I was a guy, my thought process was, that's like, well, I don't want that to get into my head. I don't want to start seriously missing who I was before, because I was afraid that it would get into my head. I was essentially afraid that I'd want to detransition if I started to seriously give those things any thought. So I completely ignored it. I shoved it in the back of my brain. I refused to think about it for a long time. And I just want to also pause. I want to clarify some things. I have noticed, having a break, I'm sorry. I have noticed some people just kind of commenting and, you know, making the comment that, like you say, when I was a guy, but you were never a guy. I just want to clarify. No, I was never a guy. I lived as a guy. This is what you gotta understand. No, I'm not transgender. I never was. I just thought I was. So yes, technically I was a girl the whole time, but I'm going to say, and I'm going to continue to say, when I was a guy, because in my mind, at that point, I was a guy. In my brain, that's how I identified myself. It's how everybody else around me identified me. So technically, I wasn't a guy, but I'm not gonna say it's like, oh, well, when I was a girl pretending to be a guy. That's too many fucking words, you know, I couldn't give a shit, honestly. So, when I say when I was a guy, I understand, obviously, I wasn't ever a guy, right? At least not me personally. I wasn't trans, okay? But I'm just shortening it. It just makes it easy, okay? So, to answer those questions, but yes, where was I? So, yeah, I just kind of, about those thoughts that I was having, whenever I would have them, I was, like, literally, like, shove them and stomp them down to the very bottom of my brain so I wouldn't think about it. Because I knew deep down that if I started to think about it, it might cause some problems for me. So I kind of refused to think about it or give it any thought. And I'd say I had thoughts like that pop into my head probably about once a month. And at month 6, that's when it really started to kind of get to me, and that's when I decided to actually sit down and figure it out. But along with me starting to feel, you know, like I missed being, you know, those parts of being a girl. Also, my sexuality had a very large part to play in my detransition. It had a large part to play in my transition too. Like when I originally transitioned, my confusion and issues I had with being asexual had a big part to play. It caused me to transition in the first place. Because when I've transitioned, I was kind of in the mindset of, well, I don't really like anybody, I'm asexual, I don't want this, you know, it's like, I don't want to date anybody, I don't want to be with anybody, I don't like this attention that I'm getting. So I figured, kind of in my head, it's like, okay, well, what's this fix? What's the solution to fix these problems that I'm having. How do I fix being asexual? Almost. That's kind of where I was. And so when I transitioned originally, I was like, well, in my mind, I didn't think a guy would have that many problems, you know, with the, I guess, societal pressures to get married and have kids and shit like that, which was just me being naive. Like, guys are pressured for all sorts of things, maybe a little bit different things than women are usually pressured to, but I didn't just escape those kind of expectations, so that was wrong. I was wrong about that, but that's why I decided to transition in the first place. So when we're talking about my detransition, my asexuality had a part to play in that too, because, and I think honestly, if I had thought about me being asexual and like dating and everything like that earlier in my transition, I probably would have detransitioned earlier too, but it got put off so long for me because the first year and a couple of months of me being trans, I wasn't dating. I wasn't interested in dating, you know, I was perfectly fine just living my life as a guy. And also the thing was, I did not know how to date as a guy. I did not know how to date as a short guy, which I do not discriminate against anybody else. If I were to date somebody, I don't care how tall you are, because me, you know, it's just my height was a constant form of anxiety for me when I was a guy, because I was like, oh my god, I'm short. It was this constant thing. So the whole dating thing, I just completely put off. I didn't even really acknowledge it. It just wasn't there. It wasn't a part of my life. I wasn't dating when I was a trans guy. It was only until we got a new coworker at work, and she downloaded Tinder, and she convinced me to download Tinder when I was a guy. And it kind of just made me think about, well, if I were to start dating, how would I start dating? Like, how would I do it? You know, it's like, how am I going to go about this? And so those thoughts sort of started to play into my mind. And then I had the question, well, who am I attracted to? Because when I was a girl, I wasn't really attracted to men or women, but in my head, I had transitioned, so now I'm a guy, I can do whatever I want, and I'd kind of subconsciously, I think, expected transitioning to change my sexuality. It didn't. Newsflash, spoiler alert. But, yeah, I kind of got the question of, well, who am I gonna date? I could see myself dating a girl, but not really. Like, as a guy, I couldn't see myself dating, and I really hope this doesn't offend anybody. I'm not trying to, I'm just giving my experience. There's nothing wrong with trans guys dating. I just couldn't see myself as a trans guy dating a girl. But on the other hand, I also couldn't see myself as a guy dating a guy either. It was all about how I saw it in my head, and I could never really I could never sort it out, and that was always every time I started to think about dating, that was always a source of anxiety, almost, because I could never figure it out. It's like, well, I don't know what I want to do. It's like, I'd be more attracted to guys, even though I'm not technically, attracted to guys, but if I had to pick one, it would be guys. So I was more attracted to guys than girls, but I wasn't attracted to the idea of being in a relationship with a guy while I was a guy. I wasn't comfortable playing the role of guy, you know? So it's not that I have an issue with gay relationships, it's just I wasn't comfortable with being a guy in a relationship with a guy, if that makes any sort of sense. Like I said, I'm really trying my best to explain this, but it's really hard to kind of put the brain puke out into the world that makes any sort of sense. So forgive me, I am trying my best. But yeah, so that was always kind of a thing where it's like, well, I don't know where I fit, right? Because anytime I started to think about dating or even you know, doing anything like that. I just didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt right. That's the best way I can put it. It just wasn't right. So that was also something that played a really, really big part, because that's when I eventually had kind of come to the conscious conclusion. I think I was literally sitting on the couch one day, and I kind of realized, as I was thinking about it, transitioning did not change my sexuality. And you think that I would know that already, but I literally came to a conscious conclusion where I was like, I literally thought it, and I was like, oh. And I was kind of disappointed, but I was kind of disappointed in myself, because I was like, well, I realized that I had subconsciously thought it would, and had kicked myself because of like, I know that's not how it works. Why did I think that would work for me? I don't know. I don't know what was going through my brain, but that was the other thing that was in and out of my brain for the next few months, and that paired with me missing how I felt, kind of led to me eventually a couple months later thinking, okay, I'm having these thoughts fairly consistently about me not feeling right, about something, you know, just going wrong, you know, me missing certain things about being a girl. And in my head, I remember thinking, it's like, okay, if I am having these thoughts consistently, then that means that there might be something wrong, and I owe it to myself to at least figure out why I'm having these thoughts, instead of just pushing it away. Because I eventually kind of figured out, it's like, okay, I don't want to think about this, because I don't want to admit that I might have made a mistake about being trans, because then I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew that if there was something wrong, and I had waited and waited and waited and waited to not think about it, and to like wait to push it off and address it like maybe months or even years down the line, that would only hurt me in the long run. So eventually I decided to sit down and really kinda figure out myself. And really, I sat down essentially with myself and really thought about why I was having these issues. Like, what is going on with myself? And so I kind of tried to get down to the bottom of it, and that's when I kind of started to... Oh gosh, I'm trying to think about my thought process the day that I decided that I wanted to detransition. Because I think I originally just sat down to try and figure out what about me wasn't right. I knew my sexuality was an issue. I knew that I missed certain parts about being a girl, but I was like, well, what parts about being a girl do I miss? Why do I miss those? And I basically just came to the conclusion, just like, I don't know, I like it. I didn't really have a good explanation for myself. And then, after a bunch of thoughts and, you know, just basically just going back and forth with myself in my brain and not really getting anywhere, I asked myself, okay, if I could go back to being a girl, like, in an instant, with no consequences, I would look exactly the same as I did before, I would sound how I did before, you know, if I could just reverse my transition, you know, would I want to do it? And the light bulb kind of hit me when my answer wasn't immediately no. Because if you're trans, and you think, well, what if I could go back to my original gender? And your answer is probably, if you're actually trans, it's usually going to be, no, I'm trans, I am more myself, I feel awesome, you know, you like being a girl, you're trying to get to yourself. But for me, I kind of thought about it, I was like, well, maybe, I might. And then I was like, shit, because I knew that since my answer wasn't no, that I probably wasn't trans. Because, despite popular belief, I am not an idiot. I knew that if I was having these doubts with myself already about wanting to be a girl, that they weren't going to go away anytime soon, because it had been months. And I was like, well, if these thoughts were temporary, if I was actually trans, I wouldn't be missing being a girl this much. I would have gone away already. I wouldn't be confusing things for myself like this late into it. I was like, I just felt like it would have fixed itself by now if I was truly trans. And that's kind of when I kind of had to admit to myself that I probably wasn't trans. And then at that point, I had to sit down and think, it's like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Because I wasn't immediately sure that I was gonna detransition, because I was kind of at this point where I had sort of blown my own mind. It was like a random Tuesday when I decided to think about that. I didn't think that I would come to the conclusion that I wasn't trans in the span of a couple hours of thought. I just wasn't really prepared for it. So that's when I really kind of had to think about, okay, like, what am I gonna do with this information? It's like, okay, I'm a trans guy. I've been on hormones for over a year and a half. I look like a guy. I sound like a guy. All my coworkers know me as a guy. My roommates know me as a guy. I said, all my family have now just gotten used to calling me certain things. And I said, what am I gonna do about it? And I was like, well, I could detransition, but as soon as I thought that, I was like, no, I can't do that. It was really, really, really intimidating. Even the thought and the idea of detransitioning, because it was so foreign, a concept. I was like, well, shit, I've never heard about anybody transitioning and being wrong. Like, I've just never heard about that. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? So that's and then that's where I kind of hit the point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna research it a little bit. I looked up, detransition, and I looked it up after maybe a day of me refusing to think about it, but I couldn't get it out of my head, so that's when I started to actually Google things and look it up and see, it's like, well, is anybody else in my situation? Like, maybe get some information on what I should do. And I had discovered a few people on YouTube, a few good people. Elle Palmer is a good one. She's on YouTube. She was the first person that I saw, who gave me kind of a little, like, a ray of hope for myself, because I was like, well, she doesn't look too bad, so maybe I'm not gonna look too bad if I detransition. You know, it's like, she kind of gave me a little bit of hope. So she's also a very good resource if you're looking for information. But yeah, and then I had, once again, decided, oh god, I fucked up. And I decided not to detransition. Of course, that lasted all of 2 weeks, and then and then that's when I realized that I had to get out of the house I was in. So I got a new apartment, so I didn't have any roommates, and I felt like I could detransition in peace, right? I couldn't escape my coworkers, because I couldn't get a new job. That was just a big mess, because I was like, at first, I was really, really kind of scared to transition in front of my coworkers because, or, well, rather, detransition, but to them, it would seem like I'm transitioning because they didn't know I was trans in the first place. So they think, oh, well, Ryan's is becoming a chick now, he must be trans, right? That's where kind of a lot of them were in the mindset of, and I had to explain to them and totally bamboozle some people when I was like, hey, and by the way, I just came into work looking different like that. I had a wig, I wore all my makeup. It was a rough couple of weeks. I will say that. But I came in and I kind of had to explain to some people, it's like, I'm not trans, I'm detransitioning because I used to be trans and you just didn't know about it. So that was fun. But yeah, and then afterwards, I mean, you guys kind of know, or people who have been on my channel for a while kind of know the rest of the story, because a few days after I had detransitioned, that's when I posted my very first YouTube video, which led me here to you guys. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the best way that I can explain what had, like, the thoughts that I had that had kind of led to my detransition. More in depth, and I feel more, I feel like I have more of my thoughts collected now, than I did when I first posted my video. Oh, it's my cats, I'm sorry. They're giving me all sorts of nonsense, but Yeah, so, I guess to sum up, yeah, it was a mix of missing how I felt when I was a girl, how I missed feeling good, but I think the big tipping point was my sexuality and just feeling like nothing fit. Um, that's kind of what really clued me into something, or to that something was wrong, and then I had decided that I wasn't really trans when I had asked myself, like, okay, well, if I could go back to my original gender with no consequences, like tomorrow, right? Would I? And since my answer wasn't immediately no, and I actually considered it, that's when I realized, like, oh shit, I'm considering this. There's probably something wrong. So that's what I was missing, and more of what I was talking about in my latest video when I said that there were certain things that I missed about being a girl when I was a guy, and that's what led to ultimately, what caused my detransition was my realization, or rather coming to the realization that these are serious things that I'm missing and that they're not going to go away. And it is not universal, it's not the same for everybody. If anybody has any, like, experience that is similar to this, please put it down in the comment below. Comments below. I love reading your guys's, kind of your stories and, you know, your experiences. Makes me feel like I'm not so alone in this madness of detransition haze. But, yeah, so that's the video for today. I hope it explained a little bit better what I meant in my last video, and probably went more into detail about my detransition, because I talked about it a little bit in my first video, but I never really went more in depth, I feel. So, anyways, like I said, I hope it answers some questions that you guys had. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Yeah, I guess like I said it in my last video, but, you know, the whole YouTuber jazz, like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate having you guys here. I'm really trying to push towards that 100,000 subscribers. We are about 10,000 subscribers away. It's really approaching. It's getting really close. I really, God, honestly want that silver play button. I want it, man. I want it. This is so exciting for me. Never thought it would happen, but like I said, I have you guys to thank for that, so I really greatly appreciate everything you guys do for me, every like, every click that you guys give me, so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, again. But yeah, I'll probably I will probably be posting another video in the next couple of days for you guys. So yeah, if you want to see more, then just hit the bell, I guess. Although sometimes it doesn't necessarily work. But yeah, anyways, I will catch you guys in the next one. So,